From KPRC2, this is Houston Newsmakers with Cambrell Marshall.
Good morning and welcome to Houston Newsmakers. One of the big local stories this week continues to be HISD and the TEA's plan to take over the board. I told you last week that I'd invited Superintendent Millard House II to come on this program, something he's done several times during his tenure as superintendent. But not this time. The district said his only comment would be from a statement that was put out right after the announcement by TEA. That's old news. I will continue to issue invites for the superintendent to be here to get his take on what he feels like to have what he's worked toward for the past couple of years snatched away, essentially, by state government. That state government agency, the Texas Education Agency, has moved forward with their takeover plan, which on paper must have seemed like a good idea. Tell the people we're taking over, then go into the communities to tell them how the takeover process will work, knowing that in these communities, for the most part, they are not happy at all about a whole district being taken over to fix a few schools and a board that was really in bad shape a few years ago, but it arguably fixed itself through elections and a new superintendent. So the definition of turmoil, that is a state of great disturbance, confusion, or uncertainty. That was certainly the definition of the TEA meeting attempts this past week. They were held at two different schools with two very similar results. Parents came away with a lot of unanswered questions, perhaps partly because the meetings were basically taken over by people who decided that screaming might be a good way to get their questions answered. As I said, this might have looked good on paper. A state of disturbance, confusion, or uncertainty. Yeah, it certainly was. There's obviously a lot of anger in the community. But as I asked Congressman Al Green last week on this program, should not the anger be directed toward those who passed a law in 2015 that dictated two either-or options when the district schools repeatedly fail? TEA Commissioner Mike Morath talked about that.
The Commissioner of Education is required to act, it's not discretionary, in the event that a single school in a district goes for extended periods of time with sort of what you would think of as chronically low achievement. I only have two choices. I either close the impacted low performing school, or I have to order a board of managers for the district as a whole. And so it doesn't make sense to order the closure of an individual school in this case, because that's not really the cause of the problem. It's about sort of the equitable access to resources across the district.
So the law is one big issue, and in the coming weeks we'll be delving into that law. Who voted for it, who did not, and what is the appetite to change it in a state environment where the governor is openly pushing for more charter school opportunities? Stay tuned. The other big story is a national tone to it, and that is the indictment question surrounding former President Trump because of an alleged hush payment to a porn star. Republicans nationally have focused their attention on the Manhattan DA, his name is Alvin Bragg, accusing him of playing politics. That's him right there at the podium. While one of the Republican-led committee leaders in Congress is even taking a stand from the federal level about a local jurisdiction in New York. KPRC legal analyst Brian Weiss says DA Bragg is not one to be intimidated.
Alvin Bragg, Manhattan DA, is an American success story, somebody who made his way from the streets of Harlem to the halls of Harvard, was an assistant U.S. attorney in the prestigious federal prosecutor's office in Manhattan, and then a chief deputy in the New York Attorney General's office. Alvin Bragg has recognized what they teach prosecutors the first day of prosecutor school. If you want to be the most popular girl in middle school, do not be a prosecutor and do not prosecute a high-standing Republican office holder. But I think Alvin Bragg recognizes that the only thing that will get him jammed up worse than indicting Donald Trump in the Manhattan case is not indicting him.
So having said that, it's one thing to bring an indictment. In this case, the first against a former president of the United States. But in this case, with this former president, let's just say there are plenty of other opportunities for Lady Justice to weigh in.
One of the ironies about Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg bringing this prosecution is that it's the runt of the litter compared and contrasted to the other ongoing investigations involving former President Trump. The January 6th and Mar-a-Lago investigations being run by special counsel Jack Smith, and the election tampering case being spearheaded by Fulton County DA Fani Willis in Atlanta. At the end of the day, this Manhattan case has more baggage than a Samsonite factory.
Brian Weiss. Hey, the former president was the first to talk about a possible arrest this past week, and then fundraised on that prospect, and also saw his standing in the polls rise. Coincidence? Not likely. Only 1 year and 8 months now until Election Day. Just ahead, we talk about an amazing organization that for more than 70 years has been making a difference. That is especially true for our community of the intellectually disabled. Hear the wonderful story about the Center for Pursuit and how you might also be able to help when Houston Newsmakers continues.